Hello everybody and welcome. There are those who call me Bardbreaker, and last week we beat Pokemon Emerald using only a single Barboach. That was a grind though, because it was through unfamiliar terrain and it was a really bloated game that I've never played before. So let's make things a little easier this week. Let's go back to Kanto, but we'll stay in Gen 3. Today we're going to set out to ask and answer the question, can I beat Pokemon Leaf Green using only a Psyduck? Stat-wise, Psyduck has about 40 overall more points than Barboach, so on paper this should be easier. But all of his stats are overall still pretty run-of-the-mill. Our best stat will be our special attack, if you can call it that, which will help our water and psychic moves. But really, when you look at the moveset, that's not really super helpful, and if you look at the moveset, you'll see why. We actually don't learn any water moves until level 50. And at level 50, we get Hydro Pump, which is nice for power, but it sucks for accuracy, and we have to wait a long time to get it. We do learn Confusion relatively early, which will be good, especially for dealing with Brock, but overall our moveset is pretty limited. We start out with Scratch, which is nice, but beyond that there's really not much here. Look at the TM list though, and we can actually see some pretty interesting options. We get Water Pulse for defeating Misty, and that'll almost certainly be an immediate addition to our roster, and we'll have Ice Beam later for the endgame. We could also use Iron Tail and Aerial Ace and Dig even. We can also learn Surf and Strength, which we may find ourselves using later. As always, I'm writing this before I get started, so make your guesses whether we can win or not. I certainly feel like we can. We're going to have to be high level to do it, but I'm pretty confident that we can actually get through this. Let's go ahead and go over the rules. As always, only Psyduck in battle. I'll need other Pokemon for HMs, but they're going to be left fainted whenever possible to not taint our run. No items in battle, but held items will be allowed. And finally, no cheats, glitches, or exploits. But you guys knew that. So let's get going. So I start by using the Universal Pokemon Randomizer, and I replace Squirtle with Psyduck. That way our rival will take the Bulbasaur, which is going to give him the type advantage moving through the game. We go ahead and nickname Psyduck Yep Yep Yep. I was going to call him Ducky, but thought that was too on the nose, though it did remind me of The Land Before Time, and how Yep 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 was Ducky's catchphrase, so that's how we arrived at that. Our Psyduck is serious in nature, which when I look at the chart, because I have no clue what these are, I see that it means absolutely nothing. Serious is one of the 5 natures that don't do anything. Okay then. Glad we wasted cartridge space with natures that don't do anything. Our ability is Damp, which prevents self-destruction. Okay, we can't learn Explosion or Self-Destruct anyway, so what's the point of that? Are all Psyducks this derpy? Or did I just get a bad roll? We have a battle right there in the lab. I don't think we have to win this, but it's nice that we do because it gives us some XP. With that out of the way, we're on our way. We play a package delivery simulator for the 4th time and deliver Professor Oak's mail to him again. We get our Pokedex and a town map from Tim's sister and head back into the wild green yonder. On Route 1, just outside of town, we catch a Pidgey to use for Fly later, nicknaming it Flapsity the 4th, long may he fly, and a Rattata to use later for Cut because in Gen 3 they finally can, nicknaming it Snipticus the 4th, long may she cut, and a Mankey west of Viridian City for Strength and Rock Smash later, nicknaming it Bicepticus the 4th, long may she lift. And we grind a bit before challenging our rival west of town. I go in at level 8, which in hindsight isn't high enough. We do get past his Pidgey, but his Bulbasaur takes us down in a couple hits. This is an optional battle though, and we don't actually need to win here to progress. And so at this point we know we have to grind to beat Brock, so we spend an hour grinding in Viridian Forest. We catch a Pikachu for Flash later, nicknaming it Flashelius the 4th, long may he shine, and spend the rest of the time grinding. There's really nothing quote-unquote good here, but we need to hit level 16 so we can learn Confusion, or we're certainly not going to beat Brock. It'll be neutral damage against his rock and ground types, but Scratch is resisted by those, so we have to get to Confusion. Our best options here are the Kakuna and Metapod, but they only pop up around 10% of the time. It takes about an hour, but we eventually do it, and we take on Brock at level 16, and it's a breeze. Geodude goes down in 2 hits, and his Onix is a bit higher level, so he manages to hang in the fight a bit longer, but he also goes down relatively easily. We fight all the trainers east of town, and we clear out Mount Moon without any issues. Along the way, I took the Dome fossil. I knew if I didn't take the Helix fossil, you all would complain, so let's see those complaints down in the comments. After leaving Mount Moon, I decided to go ahead and teach Psyduck Mega Punch, because I actually forgot move tutoring was a thing in this game, and now we actually have a fairly strong move with decent enough accuracy to help out. We put it to use immediately with the rival battle on Nugget Bridge. We confuse Pidgeotto with a Confusion as it hits itself before we land a Mega Punch for the knockout. Bulbasaur would have probably gone down in 1 Confusion, but I accidentally used Mega Punch again and he misses a Sleep Powder. His Abra is out next and it does nothing as it goes down in 2 scratches. Finally last is his Rattata and it's down in 1 Mega Punch. We clear out the rest of Buffet Bridge, as my autocorrect wrote on my notes, and we fight all the trainers on the way to Bill's house. We rescue him from his episode of When Cosplay Attacks and receive our SS ticket for the trouble. Now it's time for Misty. Her Staryu drops like a rock from a single Mega Punch, but its evolved form Starmie is her second Pokemon, and it's a bit more challenging. It survives a Mega Punch well and lands a couple of not very effective Water Pulses. She then starts using Swift as our Confusion does even less damage because it's part Psychic. I land a Screech which chunks her defense, and another Mega Punch seals the deal with us in red health. That was closer than I thought it would be, but we could have finished it faster though. Next up, it's time for the SSN. We clear out every trainer and item of value on the boat because once you get off and it sails away, you can't come back. I don't want to miss out on any experience points if I can help it. Now it's time to fight our rival Tim. And it goes super easy. Pidgeotto drops in a single hit and his Ivysaur survives a Confusion to get off a Leech Seed, but doesn't put up much of a challenge. We finish his Raticate and Kadabra each with one hit before rescuing the captain from his trash can purgatory and receiving the HM of Cut. Next up is the Vermilion Gym, and it's nothing to write home about. We solve the trash can jamboree on our first try and we take on Lieutenant Surge. He's an electric specialist and we're weak to electric moves, so we need to do damage fast. Fortunately, we're water psychic, not water flying, so we're only 2 times weak instead of 4 times weak, and we actually do a fair bit of damage. His Voltorb and Pikachu both go down to 1 Water Pulse. His Raichu survives one though, and it lands a Thunder Wave before hitting us with Shockwave. We survive it though and get off another Water Pulse to end it. We make it through Rock Tunnel courtesy of Flashelius, and after a brief stop in Lavender Town, we take on the Celadon Gym. It's also really no challenge. Erica's the gym leader and brings 3 Pokemon to the party. Her Victory Bell survives a couple Confusions, and it misses a Stun Spore as she uses a Hyper Potion. We use a Water Pulse and a Confusion to finish it. Tangela is out now, and it's the only purely Grass type, but it goes down to a single crit Mega Punch. Finally, last out is her Vileplume. We go for a Water Pulse to bring her health down a bit as it misses a Stun Spore. It survives a Confusion, but ends up hitting itself in Confusion to end the duel, and just like that, we have our 4th badge. So Rocket Hideout is next, and I actually forgot about that for a little bit, but once I remembered, it was easy, and we're really high leveled. I've been fighting pretty much everything now, so I won't have to grind as much later, and we're really over leveled. Giovanni has an Onix and a Rhyhorn, both of which go down to a single Water Pulse. His Kangaskhan is a bit beefy though, and it survives a Confusion and even chunks us with Bite and Mega Punch, but eventually goes down with 2 more Water Pulses. Now we get the Sylph Scope, and it's time to clear out Lavender Town. Tower Tim isn't much of a challenge. His Pidgeotto goes down to 1 Mega Punch, his Ivysaur goes down to 1 Confusion. His Gyarados, which he has now, lands a couple of Thrashes, but goes down after a Screech, Mega Punch, and a Confusion. Growlithe goes down to a Water Pulse, and his Kadabra goes down to a Mega Punch. Again, we're pretty high level here, but it's really going to help later in the game. We heal up and push to the top to save Mr. Fuji, get the Pokeflute for our trouble. Once we get the Pokeflute, we can clear the Snorlax and make our way into Saffron City. At one point along the way, while clearing out Cilco, we miss 5 Mega Punches in a row. This is a 0.008% chance of this happening. That was ridiculous. Now it's time for the Silphco rival fight. His Pidgeot gets confused and goes down with a second Water Pulse. His Venusaur gets confused and takes a Mega Punch, and it puts us to sleep, but it goes down in its own confusion. His Gyarados is out next, and it gets us down to red health, but eventually it faints with a few Screeches and Mega Punches. We're pretty low health now, so we're in trouble, but we get lucky. Next is his Growlithe, and it goes down to 1 Water Pulse, and last is his Glass Cannon of an Alakazam. We land a crit Mega Punch though to one-shot it, and we end it. We heal up a bit, and it's time to fight Giovanni. I'm going to assume his Nidoking is out first. My notes corrected it to Nicotine, but it gets off a Horn Attack and goes down with 2 Confusions. Nidoqueen is out next, and it goes down in 2 Water Pulses. Kangaskhan brings us down to red health after surviving 2 Screeches and a Mega Punch somehow, but we take it down with a Confusion. His Rhyhorn is out last, and it's not really a threat because it's weak to Surf, and it goes down with 1 Water Pulse. Now it's time for Sabrina and the Psychic Gym. I don't bother looking up a walkthrough because I want to fight as many trainers as I can, so we bumble our way through the warp rooms and take on most of them before we finally land in hers. And yeah, we're really over-leveled, so this fight is super easy. We actually don't take a single point of damage at all. She uses a couple Hyper Potions along the way and sets up a Reflect and a Barrier, but we take everything down in 2 Water Pulses or Mega Punches. I know I said it before, we're over-leveled, but for the endgame we're going to need every point we can, and I'm not super concerned about being over-leveled during the mid-game. So let's continue on to Fuchsia. Once there, I decided to go straight for the gym and stop the Poison Master from making any more poison, and boy does it go well. We're still over-leveled, but man, just look at this run. Out first is his Coughing, and it goes down to a crit Confusion. His Muck comes out next, and it also goes down to a crit Confusion. Third out is another Coughing, which also goes down to a crit Confusion. Last out is his Wheezing, and it survives a normal Confusion, while landing a Sludge before going down to another crit Confusion. Where is this crit luck when I actually need it in the Elite Four? That was 4 crits out of 5 uses of Confusion. I didn't do the math on this one. Someone do the math in the comments on that. That has to be ungodly low. We forge through the Safari Zone, and on our first attempt, we find the Gold Teeth and the HM for Surf with steps to spare. After that, we pick up the rare candy from the Warden, and it's time for Cinnabar Island. And no surprise, we're going to one-shot our way through with Surf. Those extra levels, again, they seem excessive, but we're going to need them later, just trust me. We fly back to Viridian City to take on Giovanni in the ground gym, and it's almost not worth talking about in detail. We one-shot his entire team with Surf. Again, we're over-leveled for our foes here, but in short order when we get to the Elite Four, we're going to need every single one of them. So again, I'm not worried, and neither should you guys. And immediately I see that we're not invulnerable despite our massive level advantage. Our rival west of town stops us to fight, and though we get past his Pidgeot, his Venusaur Razor leaves us, and we lose for the first time in quite some time this run. Let's try this again. After 4 or 5 failed attempts later, I decide to buy Ice Beam from the Celadon Game Corner and replace Screech. I like being able to chunk people's defense, but now we can get past the Venusaur in 2 hits. The rest of his team falls into place after that easily enough. Gyarados could give us some trouble, but it only sets up a Rain Dance and misses Hydro Pump, so we make it through unscathed. And our first attempt against the Elite Four goes poorly. Lorelei, the Ice Trainer, is out first, and we do very little damage to her Dugong. Looks like we're going to need to be higher level. We do eventually get past it, but it sets up a Hail, and I just don't see how we can get past the rest. Honestly, the rest of Elite Four I'm not super worried about. We have decent type coverage for them. It's Lorelei and her Ice and Water team that are going to be trouble. So we decide to replace Mega Punch with Brick Break. It's 5 points weaker, but 20 points more accurate, and it's a fighting type move, which means it'll be super effective on her Ice Pokemon. We get past her Dugong with ease this time. Her Cloyster is still tough because it's physically defensive, but we get past it, and we run smack dab into a wall that I didn't think about. Her Slowbro. Her Slowbro is tanky as crap, and without Mega Punch now, we've actually painted ourselves into a corner because it resists all 4 of our moves. It's Water and Psychic, which means it resists Water and Ice moves, and it resists Fighting and Psychic moves. Our best bet's going to be Surf. It's 95 power, and we get a stab off of it. But either way, we're definitely going to need to level here. So we spend some time grinding up to level 75 off a bunch of trainers that I skipped, as well as catching a few more Pokemon so that I can get the item finder to get the leftovers. It's a held item that'll replenish my health a little each turn, and we're going to need it if we're going to be hanging out in battle with Slowbro for a few turns. I also find all 12 pieces of the rare candy that I can get up to this point in the game, just in case we need to power level. But I'll save those for later to skip the highest levels we can. Let's try this again at level 75. And I forgot to equip the leftovers. God damn it. We get past her Slowbro though, so that shows me this is possible. Leftovers would have probably saved us. Let's try again. And oh my god, guys, I don't even know where to begin here. So I remembered to equip leftovers this time, and we land a really good Brick Break to start off with her Dugong. One more hit's gonna do it, but Dugong lands a weak Ice Beam and freezes us. Not only are we frozen, we stay frozen for 12 goddamn turns. 12. Just watch this replay. This is 12 turns of me not doing anything as we're slowly whittled away. What is this garbage? So I looked into it, and apparently there's only a 20% chance of actually thawing in Gen 3. I thought it was a 50% coin flip. It's only 20. But even still, 12 consecutive turns of not thawing, that works out to about 7% chance of that happening according to my math source. Let's try it again. So after a couple of failed attempts, we do finally get this run. Dugong sets up a Hail, but it goes down in 2 Brick Breaks. Her Cloyster's out next, and it takes a few hits before healing up with a full restore. We whittle it back down, and it dies, but we finish it with a Surf. Next out is the Brick Wall Slowbro, but it doesn't use Amnesia this time, which means its special defense doesn't get raised, and we take it out in 3 Surfs. Jinx is out next, and it survives a Surf, and it puts us to sleep with Lovely Kiss, and uses Attract. When we eventually wake up, we break through the attraction to land a Surf to finish it. Out last is her Water Ice Tank Lapras, but the fortune favored the bold, and we land a crit Brick Break for a one-shot. Finally on to Bruno. We actually lose our first attempt against his Hitmonlee, but the second attempt goes much better. We one-shot the Onix with Surf, and we two-shot everything else with a combination of Surf and Confusion. Lastly is his Onix, which lands an Earthquake, which we didn't really need to worry about, and we survive and finish it with a Surf. On to Agatha. Out first is her Gengar, and we take it down with a combination of Surf and Confusion. Her Golbat is out next, and it goes down to a single Ice Beam. Out third is an Arbok, which we take it down, but not before being poisoned with a Sludge Bomb. Our leftovers will help deal with the poison damage, but it's going to do more than our leftovers can heal, so we're in trouble. Her second Gengar is out next, and we take it down with a Surf and a Confusion, but we're in low health, and it's last up to her Haunter. We land a crit Confusion though for the knockout one-shot, and we're able to move on with just a little bit of health to spare. We Antidote up, heal up, and it's time for Lance. Lance starts with a Gyarados, which nothing we have is super effective against, but 2 Ice Beams and a Surf take it out. We one-shot his 2 Dragonairs with Ice Beams, and out next is his legendary Dragonite, but because it's 4 times weak to Ice, being Dragon and Flying, it goes down to a single Ice Beam. Aerodactyl is out last, and it survives an Ice Beam while healing with a full restore before going down to Surf. We use an Elixir and heal up, and now it's time to take on the champion Tim. Take your guesses below if we've got this. And yeah, we don't get far. We get to his Alakazam, but it hits hard with Psychic because it outspeeds us, and it sets up Future Sight, which is always going to hit later even if we take it out, so we need a run that avoids Future Sight. We make a dozen or so failed attempts at Tim at our current level, and it's just not happening, guys. So I reluctantly decide to use a bunch of our rare candy, and after a few failed attempts, we pour more on, and we finally come back at level 85. The Pidgeot barely survives an Ice Beam and lands an Aerial Ace before healing up with a full restore. A Surf brings the Pidgeot down low, and at this point he swaps for a Venusaur, so we land an Ice Beam for big damage. We land a second Confusion to end the Venusaur. He brings his weak Pidgeot back out now, and another Surf finishes it. Third out is his Alakazam, and it lands a big Psychic while it also takes big damage from Surf. He heals with a full restore as we land another Surf. Fortunately, our speed lets us hit another move, and we finish him off without setting up a Future Sight. Next out is his Rhydon, which goes down to a single super effective Surf. Out next is his Gyarados, and it lands 2 Thrashes while we whittle it down with Ice Beams. It's confused, but it breaks through for a Dragon Rage as we land another Ice Beam to finish it. We're at low health, but we still have one more Pokemon to get through, and it's his Arcanine. It outspeeds us and lands an extreme speed, but we just barely hang on with 8 HP as we land a super effective Surf for the win. And that's it, guys. We've beaten Leaf Green with just a Psyduck. That was interesting and certainly didn't take as long as Emerald or Crystal did. I'm not really sure what our next challenge is going to be, but probably back to Gen 2 again. Until then, guys, like, comment, and subscribe, ring the bell, and go catch 'em all.